This is a true incident from my life, and telling it out loud still makes my hands shake. I was 23 when I learned what humiliation feels like in your throat, like you swallowed a splintered glass. My engagement party was on the rooftop at the Thompson in Buckhead, the skyline snagging dusk like a necklace on a sweater. A sweating coupe of champagne dripped onto the linen near my ring, and then Grant, my fiancé, tapped his flute with a monogrammed cufflink and said, "2 upgrades," glancing at a woman in a white satin slip who wasn't me. The DJ's laptop light flickered across the side of his smirk as he added, "Meet my new woman." The world tilted with the thrum of the rooftop HVAC, and in that beat of silence, my phone buzzed on the cocktail table with an unread notification from Dotloop, cash offer for $615,000, ready to sign. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel, tell us where you're from, and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. I should back up, not to excuse him or to sell you on some fairy tale of who we were, just to show you how easy it is to slide down a hill when your shoes are slick with somebody else's charm. I met Grant at Georgia State, sophomore year, when the trees along Piedmont Avenue did that yellow confetti thing and the MARTA trains sang metal lullabies behind the library. He had this way of making everything feel like the start of a music video. Open car windows, fried pickles from the Vortex in Little Five, a collection of vintage Braves caps he actually ironed. I was studying public health. He was the big talker in every room, a marketing guy who could sell humidity to Atlanta. Our first apartment was a 1-bedroom with a cranky elevator near Ponce City Market. We pretended the Beltline was our backyard. When my aunt passed, the small inheritance plus my early morning shifts at Grady and a down payment grant put a little East Atlanta Village bungalow within reach, a white clapboard on a crooked street off Glenwood with a porch swing and a fig tree that tried its best. The deed was in my name. I never made a secret of that. He never paid more than utilities and groceries, which he called our arrangement, in the kind of voice that issued receipts on your soul. The first hairline crack wasn't a rumor, or a strange perfume, or a gnawing suspicion you can't name. It was a lipstick stain, peach, glossy, on the cuff of his gray hoodie, the one he insisted was for the gym, crumpled under the passenger seat of his Tacoma. We'd driven to Decatur that weekend to see a matinee at the plaza and grab butter pecan ice cream from Jenny's. He found the hoodie on Monday morning when he was late to his Falcon Vista Sports stand-up, and he laughed like stains are a communal joke. "Makeup from a client's touch-up at the shoot," he said. "You know influencers. Everything's sticky." I wasn't built to be suspicious. My mother used to tell me I was born as if I trusted the nurse to hold me before I trusted gravity. But suspicion adjusts you. It sits on your shoulder and watches. I started noticing the pinprick differences in his days, the new cologne with sandalwood bite, the shaking off of find, my sharing with the joke about privacy, babe, even to pee, the slurred late-night battery died that arrived with Uber receipts to Hotel Clermont, the way he started lifting his phone higher, angling it away when he typed. My roommate from freshman year, Maya, is a nurse now and knows when to keep her mouth shut and when to pry it open. She saw me stir my coffee at the Starbucks on Moreland until it was less coffee and more whirlpool. "You're going to get carpal tunnel in your heart," she said, and pushed a napkin toward me. "List what you know and what you feel. They aren't the same thing." What I knew, the lipstick, the Uber receipts, the sudden canceled date nights, the client dinner that ended with a Wingstop bag on the counter at 1:30 a.m. What I felt, a buzzing in my rib cage, like a phone on a metal desk. He wanted an engagement like a campaign launch, sponsored content, brand partnerships, trending audio. He proposed in front of Jackson Street Bridge with a photographer who shouted, "More chin, less neck," and a ring with a thin band and a center stone that caught the sunset in a way that made strangers clap. I said yes because I meant it then. We booked the Thompson because it felt like an era. Grown up but still close to home. Valet tickets with our names printed, the kind of party where the napkins match the floral mood board. The second crack came as a notification. I was answering an email from my preceptor at Emory about a data pull when his iPad flashed on the kitchen counter. "You up?" From a contact saved as B. Before I could stop myself, I watched the three dots bubble, his reply, "Working," followed by a gif of a man tapping his watch. The rest of their thread was a chain of in-jokes and scheduled workouts with a photo of her new nails holding a hotel keycard at the W Midtown. Her manicure looked expensive, a sheer pink with tiny pearls. Her name, a few scrolls later, was spelled out in a Venmo from him. Brianna's Parking, Client Care. Her last name matched the handle of an Atlanta fitness influencer who'd recently done a paid campaign with Falcon Vista. My stomach turned cold in that hard, clean way where you suddenly understand lines and how someone is drawing circles around you. I confronted him, but softly. I was not the kind of girl who threw plates. I was the kind of girl who used her inside voice. He kissed the top of my forehead, the way you pat a dog, and said, "Everybody flirts, babe. It's networking. Don't be a girl who doesn't get the industry." The day after the lipstick hoodie, I set up a folder in Google, drive called House Stuff. Inside it, I made subfolders: deed, improvements, utility accounts, security, contingencies. It wasn't a plan yet. It was a spine. I also made a second folder, private, not shared with anyone, called Receipts. In it, I dropped PDFs, Uber trips, hotel folios from his emailed rewards, my own Ring camera clips that showed him coming in after midnight with a hand on the small of someone's back, crop shadows in the porch light, screenshots of his messages when he forgot to close his laptop, stills from a video someone tagged him in at a Hawks game where he leaned close to a woman with pearl nails. I copied every bill paid from my account, every major improvement on the house I had done without him. New water heater, signed by me. Porch repair, me. HOA dues, me. It was not a revenge plan. It was inventory. And then I called Tasha. Tasha is a realtor whose superpower is paperwork speed. We went to high school together, and she once negotiated a closing while in line at Hattie B's, licking hot chicken sauce off her fingers between DocuSign tabs. I asked her about market timing, about listing off market, about cash buyers who don't nickel and dime over inspection. Her voice went low. "You okay?" "Hypothetically," I said, "if you needed to sell a house quickly, how quickly is quick?" "If you have a clean title and a cash buyer who wants a rental in East Atlanta," she said, "I can get you a signed contract in 2 hours, close in 7 days, but why—" "Let's just say I want a parachute packed," I said. "No listing yet, no sign, quiet, just a folder of possibilities." I could hear her clicking. She connected me with a group called Red Door Partners who bought bungalows within a tight radius for long-term rentals. "I'll pre-clear them," she said. "We can build the offer, leave it in the chamber. You say go, we go." The third crack appeared like bad theater. He started introducing me as the future Mrs. Davenport in rooms where people knew my name, and his laughter acquired an edge that sliced at me in public. He was promoted to Director of Brand Partnerships and enacted a costume change. Italian loafers, linen shirts that whispered when he moved, a silver watch he polished with a cloth like it was alive. He changed his iPhone passcode. He stopped wearing his Braves caps. He started wearing a smile that never reached his eyes. Our friends started to be his friends because he made plans before I did. 2 of his fraternity brothers from tech always seemed to be around with their beer louder than thought opinions, and one night after a Hawks game, they watched me load the dishwasher and commented on how domestic I looked. I laughed it off, put the plates away, and texted Maya, "I am the last person at a party that I paid for." Somewhere in that creep of weeks, our florist sent a mock-up, and he forwarded it to Brianna, the influencer, with, "This color palette is more your vibe? Thoughts?" He forgot to delete the chain before archiving. Brianna responded with a photo of a white satin slip dress and the caption, "I'm wearing this to the party." It was like a dog whistle. Everyone could hear it, but only I could feel the frequency in my molars. I decided to be specific with myself. If he was violating ethical rules with a paid contractor, using corporate resources, or dangling insider access to her followers to keep her attention, that wasn't just cheating, it was professional misconduct. I wasn't trying to destroy him. I was trying to reintroduce consequence into a life where he had learned that charm was a whiteout pen. Noah, a paralegal at the Fulton County Courthouse who loved calling me counselor, came over with his yellow legal pad and a box of Publix cookies. We spread my receipts folder across the dining table like a crime board. He tapped the hotel folio with his pen. "This is on the Falcon Vista corporate card," he said. "If she's an independent contractor and this isn't a documented client dinner, that's misuse. If she's a client talent, there's a conflict of interest policy. If she's a paid influencer and they're sleeping together, that's code of conduct issues all day. Not illegal, but HR will hyperventilate." "I don't want to be petty," I said. "I want to be precise." "Then we make a packet," he said. "Timeline, exhibits, and a cover letter that reads like a bloodless scalpel. You're not making allegations, you're asking for an ethics review." I wrote the letter like I was handing in a lab report. Dates, attachments, words like concern, documentation, and request for clarification regarding policy. HR email ready, but unsent. Maya helped me organize everything into a black binder with tabs: financial, communications, locations, work. "Whatever you choose," she said, sliding the binder into my tote. "You're not crazy. And if you do nothing, you're still not crazy." The morning of the engagement party, the bungalow smelled like lemon oil and carnations. The ring on my hand reflected light onto the wall like it was trying to send Morse code. He left early to check on the AV setup. He kissed me like I was reliable. I stood in our kitchen, and the hum of the refrigerator sounded like a decision. At 4 p.m., I called Tasha. "Load it," I said. "Draft the offer with Red Door. Offer price $615, 10 days due diligence, 7-day close, as is, no repairs. I'll cover the HOA transfer and closing costs if they meet my timeline. Add a clause about immediate possession after close, with no occupancy agreement because I will not be here. Email it to me to sign. Do not send yet." Her voice went calm, pilot and weather. "I'm on it." I texted a moving company I had bookmarked 3 weeks earlier, the kind that shows up with 3 guys in a truck and no judgment. "Midnight run?" I wrote. 1 bedroom's worth, mostly his stuff. Clothes, weights, golf clubs, desk, monitors. Pick up East Atlanta. Drop at Storage Mart on Boulevard. Cash tip if you're quiet. "Can do," came the reply. "See you at 11:45. At 6:20 p.m., I rode the elevator up at the Thompson with the band's keyboardist and a woman in a white satin slip. She smelled like bergamot and something sweet. Her nail pearls were perfect. She glanced at the ring on my hand and smiled like we were on the same team. The doors opened to a room full of people who believed in us. Grant took the microphone with the ease of a man who always holds mics, made eye contact with donors, clients, frat brothers. He thanked everyone. He called me his anchor and his reason and the kindest person he knows, and then he laughed into the mic in a way that told the room to laugh with him. "2 upgrades," he said, and angled his glass toward Brianna, who tilted her head like a present. The room did the "are we in a joke?" shuffle. My cheeks burned. Something inside me stepped out. "Play the slideshow," he told the DJ, and the screen behind the bar lit with a montage of our photos. Piedmont Park picnics, our first Christmas tree leaning like it was tipsy, the bungalow with a ribbon on the porch swing. In the corner, I could see the file name, Davenport, Love Story, Final 3.move. I had sent the DJ a different file that afternoon. Maya had changed the name to Davenport Love Story, final four move, and delivered a discreet thumb drive with a note. Please run this updated version. The first 60 seconds were the same, enough lullaby to get everyone's guard down, including his. Then the photos eased into screenshots. The first one a hotel folio with Falcon Vista Corporate at the top, the next a cropped DM with a pearl manicured hand and, "You up?" Then a ring camera still, 2 silhouettes on my porch, his hand on her back, then a Slack message where he wrote, "Don't worry, I'll expense it. Client development." A pause. Laughter in the room died like a light in a storm. One of his frat brothers said, "Bro!" out loud. Brianna's face went white under the rooftop lights, then red. The DJ's fingers froze above the laptop. I didn't say anything for 10 seconds because silence is a tool people undervalue. Then I walked to the mic. "The deed to our house is in my name," I said, voice steady enough to make me a little proud. "I bought it before we were us. This morning I set up a sale as a contingency. Tonight, while my fiancé introduced his new woman, I was reminded why contingencies exist." A few people laughed, nervous and small. I held up my phone, the dot loop notification glowing like a lighthouse. "This is a cash offer I asked my realtor to prepare. If I sign, we're in a binding agreement. Grant, I'll have your things moved to a storage unit by morning. Keys will be in your name at the front desk. I won't be in your house when you return." "What are you doing?" Grant whispered, his face stretched thin. He tried to grab the mic, but I stepped back, and the DJ, bless him, lifted it higher away from his hand. "I'm doing something lawful, nonviolent, and overdue," I said. "Also, Falcon Vista HR will receive a packet tomorrow morning at 9 with financial documentation related to misuse of a corporate card and conflict of interest regarding a paid contractor. I won't speculate on company policies. I'll just present facts." "You can't," he started, but I had learned I could. My thumb hovered over the signature field. The rooftop wind kicked up and lifted the edge of the bar menu like a wing. I signed the contract. It wasn't closing. It wasn't a wire transfer. But in Atlanta, when you sign a purchase and sale agreement with earnest money, you've done something that can only be unwound with consequence. Tasha's text hit a second later. "Fully executed. Earnest money deposit incoming. You okay?" I texted back, "Later," and slid my phone in my clutch. What I remember next is the sound of ice being poured into a metal shaker and the way the city looked so close you could roll it up like a poster. Brianna left first. No scene, just a glide, her nails flashing like tiny, defiant moons. People spread out, careful not to step in whatever panic might be leaking. Grant tried to make a speech about boundaries and overreactions, but shock is poor PR. I handed the mic to the DJ and asked him to play anything with a beat. He played Lizzo, and a handful of women started dancing because we are nothing if not stubbornly alive. I found my mother near the plants. She had been quiet all night. She never liked Grant's laugh, and when she hugged me, she whispered, "You did that kindly." And somehow that broke my composure more than anything else. Grant cornered me by the stairwell, away from eyes, and that's where the mask dropped. "You just tanked my job," he hissed. "You tanked our house. Do you think anyone will date you after this? You're vindictive." "The house is mine," I said. "Your job is your responsibility." "And I'm not vindictive, Grant. I'm tired." He told me I'd regret it. He told me Brianna was just for optics, as if women are set pieces. He told me his fraternity brothers were going to spin this because perception is king. I told him kings are a costume we let men wear when we're too tired to name the truth. I left the party early with Maya, carrying the black binder like a talisman. The valet ticket man at the Thompson said, "Nice night?" without irony, and I said, "Productive," and tipped him enough that his eyebrows lifted. The city peeled back as we drove down Peachtree, across Freedom Parkway, the lights of Inman Park stringing past like a runway. Maya made 2 calls in the car, one to the moving company, confirming, and one to Tasha. "We're greenlit," she said. "Send whatever she needs. Tomorrow morning we'll go to her bank for the wire instructions." At 11:45 p.m., the three guys in the truck arrived and looked at me like I might crack. Clothes, golf clubs, monitors, desk, the Peloton with the squeaky pedal, I said. Leave the bed and the couch. Put everything in Unit 324 at Storage Mart. Here's the code. They lifted his life into boxes. Shirts he ironed, trophies from intramurals he displayed like knighthood, stacks of Sports Illustrated that smelled like dust. I watched them roll the Peloton down the porch and felt nothing. At 12:30, I unscrewed his framed diploma and set it against the wall to go. The house felt like it was exhaling the breath it held for a year. I changed the Wi-Fi password, turned off his access to the security system, and paused his key fob on the smart lock, not to be cruel, but so I wouldn't wake to a man in my kitchen at 2 a.m. with an argument about context. In Georgia, he had tenant-like rights after a certain number of months, but he didn't pay rent and we had no lease. I wasn't evicting him. I was protecting myself, choosing to sleep in a locked house that was legally mine, with a contract underway that meant it wouldn't be my house much longer. At 1:12 a.m., I texted him the storage unit address, gate code, and a photo of a neat row of boxes labeled Grant. I added, "Your suits are on top to avoid wrinkles. I kept the white shirt with the blue buttons you like. I'll drop it at your office if you want. Please don't come tonight." I stared at the screen for a good minute before hitting send, not because I doubted, but because our minds like to check to see if we're still kind. I slept for 2 hours on the couch with the blinds barely open, and when dawn rolled over the bungalow, the fig tree outside threw shadows on the wall that looked like a map of somewhere else. At 7:45 a.m., I met Tasha at a coffee shop on Memorial. The barista spelled my name correctly, small favor, and slid my latte across with the message, "You got this," inked in Sharpie on the lid. Tasha wore black, like closings are a funeral. "Earnest money hit," she said, popping open her laptop. "Inspector at 10, but they're probably waiving. They want this. You set the terms. How are you?" "I'm grieving a hypothetical," I said, "but I'm not lost." At 8:57 a.m., I hit send on the email to HR with the cover letter and attachments. It was not a gotcha. It was a paper trail. At 9:22 a.m., an auto-reply acknowledged receipt and promised a review. At 10:34 a.m., I got a text from an unsaved number. "We'll be in touch. Thank you." At 11:02 a.m., I received a message from Grant. "You made your point. Remove the email." I put my phone face down and let the latte warm my hands. By noon, the house had a tidy line of ants near the back door that I wiped away with vinegar and an old towel. The inspector walked through with a flashlight and a hand that tapped the walls. The Red Door rep shook my hand, eyes scanning for sentiment, and when I didn't give him any, he seemed relieved. "We like the neighborhood," he said, as if I had asked, and I nodded. At 2:15 p.m., we agreed to close in 6 days, keys to be surrendered at closing, and I circled Friday on my paper calendar because writing it makes it real. Grant did not come home that night. He sent me 12 texts, 5 voice notes, and 1 called in favor from a mutual friend who wanted to mediate and use the word misunderstanding like a drop cloth over a fire. I texted back 1 sentence. "Please talk to HR about policies. Talk to your therapist about choices." He replied with a photo of the ring on my finger from the proposal night, as if a picture can freeze time long enough to unmake today. The next day, my mother helped me pack the kitchen. She wrapped the wine glasses in newspaper and said, "He doesn't get these." When I asked why, she said, "Because he doesn't get to toast in your house anymore." And that was that. We walked across to our neighbor's little free library and stuffed it with books I didn't want to carry, beach reads with bent spines, and a cookbook of sheet pan dinners we never cooked. A little girl took one and waved at me, and I waved back and didn't cry. On Wednesday, I met with my preceptor at Emory and told her I'd need to adjust my hours. She looked at me over her glasses and said, "Join my project full-time after graduation, and you can have my office plant now," which is academia for "I like you." I carried a pathos down the hall like a banner. On Thursday, Falcon Vista's HR called to inform me they had opened an investigation and placed Grant on leave, pending review. I didn't feel elated. I felt like I'd tossed a pebble, and the splash was the size of what it was. That night, Brianna posted a "Taking Time for Me" Instagram story with a photo of her feet on a yoga mat, and the comments section tried to solve us like a puzzle. I closed the app and read a library book on my half-empty couch. Friday, I handed over my keys, signed the closing documents, and picked up a cashier's check that didn't feel like victory. It felt like oxygen. The for sale sign in the yard had one of those red sold stickers that the agent let me place. I pressed the letters on with my thumb, smoothed the edge, and took a photo because sometimes you owe your future a postcard. Grant tried once more, outside the title office, in a suit that had learned how to stand on its own. "Tell them I'm still staying there until I find a place," he said, bright-eyed, fake soft. "We were building a life. We can work through this." "I hope you do build a life," I said. "I just won't be in it." I handed him an envelope with the storage, unit contract, and a copy of the closing statement. "This shows you how much of the mortgage and improvements I paid. If you feel entitled to anything, here are the numbers. If you want your white shirt, it's at the dry cleaners on Boulevard under your name." He laughed that laugh again, the one that always shushed other people with its shine, and for once, nobody around us reflected it back. The title office receptionist pretended to check her calendar. A man with a toddler adjusted his kid's shoe. He looked around like the world had been miscast, and finally he walked away. On moving day into my new space, a studio in Inman Park with brick that remembered old light, I hung the pothos from a hook above the window and watched its leaves decide where to point. I assembled a cheap bookshelf with a hex key and 3 false starts. I made coffee in a clean pot and drank it on the floor because the couch hadn't arrived yet. Maya showed up with Chinese takeout and champagne and a hand-lettered card that said, "To downgrades, if they're this good." And for the first time in weeks, I laughed until I couldn't breathe. A week later, Falcon Vista released a carefully worded statement about adherence to policy and mutual separation. It sounded like 2 people shaking hands in gloves. I didn't repost it. I went for a run on the Beltline and listened to a podcast about urban trees. Brianna blocked me on social, which felt like an apartment door closing in a building I no longer lived in. I saw Grant once, months later, across a crowded food stall at Krog Street Market, and he looked smaller, or maybe I looked around him more accurately. People asked if I regretted the slideshow. They asked if the sale felt like burning down a perfectly good room because a spider was in it. I told them the truth. Humiliation is a poor decorator, and confidentiality is a tool of the powerful. Sometimes the most ethical thing you can do is line up facts and let the light hit them. I did not weaponize secrets. I disclosed patterns. There's a night I return to when I can't sleep. The rooftop, yes. The hush after "my new woman," my signature on the phone. But mostly it's the moment in the bungalow at 1:12 a.m., the house quiet except for the humming refrigerator and the moving guy's steps, the porch smelling like warm fig leaves. I sent him the storage code and set the phone down, and the silence that followed wasn't emptiness. It was a room becoming itself again. The house had always been my choice, but that night I understood that the choosing was too. If you're listening to me on a screen right now, I want you to know nothing I did required a broken plate or a raised voice. It required a binder, a realtor who answers at 4 p.m., a dash of courage, and the belief that lawful consequences are not cruel. They are just the contours of an adult life. In the end, the last thing I did in that house was tape a "sold" sticker onto a plastic sign. The letters were red as a stoplight. I pressed them down until my thumb ached, and then I stood back and watched the late-night car headlights run over it, making it shine, and then I went to bed alone in a room that finally felt like mine. The end.